All right. Hey, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to go over a little bit of a preview of current progress for Friday's next patch. Everything above these three dots, these three dashes right here, is stuff that is already complete and ready to go for the next patch, barring some unforeseen scenario. Otherwise, uh, these things are these things should all be good to go. And I just want to talk a little bit about that, what's coming up next, and just general feedback and further thoughts for the direction of the project and everything like that. The usual stuff. There isn't really any huge direction changes or anything like that, but I am going to talk about stuff that I'm planning to do next. I don't know if what items that are currently on this list right here are going to make it into the Friday patch, but I'm pretty sure at least a few of these things are going to be here, be on that patch. I'm fairly certain about it. So there is. Let's see, one second. Sorry, I was distracted for a second there. So there's a few things that I want to talk about. So one thing I noticed is that right now, currently in Revulsion, the cost of crafting items brand new is way too cheap compared to repairing stuff. It's almost pointless to repair things, and the cost of upgrading them is actually more as well. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to see a little bit more of, but I didn't, I guess I completely missed the mark on getting this to actually happen, was that people wouldn't just recraft all of their items every time they gain 5 levels, rather than like upgrading them and stuff like that. I wanted to actually see people actually choose different guns simply because they didn't have a better option at the time, because there was you know what I mean. It's like, well, I really like my rocket launcher, but right now the rocket launcher is too under leveled, and for now I guess I'll just swap in this acid cannon for a little while until I can get a newer rocket launcher. And you'd actually see people. I want to see people actually like switching out the weapons that they have as their best option temporarily, or trying out different things because it costs a little bit too much to buy, to craft a new one at this point in time. At the moment, the way the game is balanced, it's entirely possible uh, for someone who like Sumo Wish or something like that, where he doesn't have to worry about that shit at all. He just crafts he crafts every single slot brand new. Just blah blah blah. You just go through it every 5 levels like it's nothing, and and then he just sticks with a very rigid build. Never even needs to branch out or feels the need to do it because he's got so much money. He's got so many things that it's pointless to even bother to try other stuff. I mean, why bother? What you got is working, right? So that's that, right? I kind of want things to be closer in the direction of where it's like, well, I guess I already said that. I'm repeating myself at that point. So that's one thing. I'm probably going to make it more expensive to craft things fresh, a fresh item, um, comparatively to upgrading. Upgrading should be cheaper. It's still going to cost a lot. And also, too, I'm probably going to apply a sort of scaling after level 50, and level 75 should kick in sort of a bump towards the cost of repairing and repairing and crafting items and all that stuff will actually start to become a bit more expensive. Now, I don't want a player who never dies to be strapped for cash. I don't want you to ever be trapped in a situation where you're screwed and you can't really do anything unless you have to like grind arduously for a period of time just because um, you fell into a slime pit or something at one point, or you know what I mean. Like, but I do want you having to make decisions. I want the brain to be constantly ticking as far as like, well, maybe I prefer my sniper rifle, but right now I might need to switch to this assault rifle, which does a little bit more damage, just for a couple levels, and then if I find a better sniper rifle in a vending machine or something, then I'll use that one instead. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. Anyway, I'm repeating myself at this point. It there's a problem with the tooltip where it actually compares your special abilities with your booster. That needs to get fixed. That's just one of those things that just needs to get fixed. Like, there's no reason why when I look at currently equipped, it should be comparing my orbital strike with my my healing booster. It doesn't make any sense. The I already looked at how to repair that or how to fix that and stuff like that. There's some stuff that's broken right now as far as advancements, and that's going to get fixed. Rapid grenade launcher is going to get a buff. Assault rifle is going to get a buff. Grenade ammo is going to be a little bit more plentiful. Rocket ammo is going to be a little bit less plentiful. Um, Now this is actually interesting because it's been suggested multiple times now, but there should be an indicator, or at least this was brought up during a review very recently, is that the person who wrote the review had no idea that there were secrets in the game, which there's secrets everywhere, but or at least in all the handcrafted maps there's secrets, and that's definitely on me because obviously, like it should be pretty obvious when that happens. Like if you find a secret, so I'll probably have some kind of a little thing that I might put together to make it so that it's a little bit more obvious. And I noticed as well that it might be nice to have like a little like there's three secrets on this map that you don't have like indicator somewhere, maybe in the tab menu, like in your inventory menu or something like that, or I don't know, maybe on the HUD. Not like there's not enough stuff there already, but there should be some kind of like secrets found, 3 of 4, something like that. Improve performance in random gen content. I actually think that it's possible. It may be pretty easy to sort of slam dunk the performance thing, because I'm noticing that a lot of the random gen levels are fairly large, and if I cut them down in half, and if I'm careful with how I tweak the numbers, I could probably reduce the overall number of monsters that are spawned in the maps, make the maps a little bit shorter, a little bit more streamlined, and also improve performance, but not giving up the density of the combat, which I think actually could be pretty nice. So like it'll feel like there's more monsters that you're currently fighting because the areas are more densely packed, but the levels are smaller and the overall number of monsters is still less, even though it's more dense. I think I can actually get that. I'm gonna try that first, and if there's anything else, then I'll have to explore maybe ideas of like spawning monsters in, not spawning them all in it at the start of the map, stuff like that. That should feel all right, I guess. I don't know. I kind of like it when they're spawned all in at the beginning because they have a chance to kind of wander around, so you don't know where they're gonna be. Sometimes, like in the random gen maps, if you don't give them enough time to wander around, um, they it gets a little predictable. You can kind of learn where the spawn points are and stuff. Not so much right now though, because they do wander around. Like they'll open doors and shit. Um, you can get stuck while crouching. Now, I'll go over the stuff that's already done as well. But this is a different bug. There's just like a trace hits a loot bubble. And this is all stuff I've already talked about. This is all things that it seems like more and more stuff keeps cropping up, but the stuff that's cropping up is less and less intensive, so I'm making headway. Now, the depraved character class is likely going to be the first content patch that I actually do to the game. Now, the depraved character class is the absolute masochism of the game, where it's going to probably play pretty differently. It's I already talked about what it will entail, but basically, in the standard mode of play, when you play the game normally, and you look in your inventory, you see this bar. Well, the depraved class will actually, these bars go down when you use the item. So like if I fire a whole bunch of ammo, I fire a bunch of shots with my shotgun will eventually reach zero and break, and I'll lose my shotgun. So you might be in the middle of a fight and realize that your shotgun's broken, um, and there's really no way to do anything about that other than craft a new one or stuff like that. Not only that, death will make it so that the bars go down as well. So there's an even stronger death penalty. The only item that, of course, this doesn't apply to is your knife. Your knife is always going to be there with infinite amount. And I'm just thinking about that. Also, your base stats as a your base stats are also pretty much half of what a soldier's stats are by default. So your movement will be like 400 by default, which means you're going to be moving very slowly. You're very dependent on getting, haste or something like that. This is the monsters wandering around I was talking about with the random gen stuff. There's some zombies sitting over there, and they just walk around. Sometimes. Let's see. So that's pretty much that. The depraved class. Well, I'll probably also include other things as well, but once that's in, like, maybe I don't know. It's basically just going to be the game in its absolute most ridiculous mode. I don't know if it necessarily borders on like tedium, or if it's going to be like maybe it starts right off on like hard difficulty. I don't know, man. It'll be pretty interesting. Now, I don't really know how things are going so far. I think that a lot of this, I'm actually really happy with a lot of the progress on as far as the patches are coming along. So, um, clipping issues, second. Basically, I just watch Sumo Wish. Anything he finds as far as clipping issues, he'll slowly just nerf everything. It's he's really good at finding stuff like jumping up on top of the roofs of buildings and shit like that. Um, I just watch his VODs, and I get to see all that stuff pretty much play out. Um, so there's clipping issues and shortcuts and stuff like that that I've already just addressed. Enemy affix changes, elemental resistances matter a lot more now. So, I've made it so that like when something's fire resistant, it's 200% increased fire resistance, and then I sort of stair step things down a little bit more evenly, and then if he's fire resistant, then he's a little bit more resistant to lightning. If he's ice resistant, then ice is 200%. In other words, ice basically will do nothing against an ice resistant monster, but fire damage is increased considerably. Um, Poison resistance, poison doesn't really do much against a monster that's ice resistant, but lightning and fire are much better choices, especially fire. And that's basically that. See, what I ended up reworking all these numbers because when I was looking at them before, I had answered a question on the forum, you know, here. It was like how let's see, thoughts on the skill tree. Oh yeah, I actually have some thoughts about doing a skill tree, but I'm not really sure if I can do that just yet. Where is it? Yeah, and it was brought up, and I'm like looking at this, and I was like, what did I do? I think I can improve on this. I think I can really improve on that. So I have. This is actually already implemented in the game. Not only does it mean now that if something is resistant to a certain element, you really got to kind of remember. It helps. It's very helpful to remember what the opposite element is. Now, if you try, if something's resistant towards something, then it has a secondary resistance to something else. and then two other resistances that it's at least slightly more weak to. So lightning resistance means that he takes 50% more more damage from ice, and poison just wrecks him basically. So if you see a lightning resistant creature, then break out the poison, um, the acid cannon or whatever, or the poison bolts, and let him have it. Fire resistance threshold has also been increased to 5x, just like all other elements. So I had a thing where fire resistance wasn't really that possible. It was capped, so like the resistance couldn't go above 2.5. Now it's at 5x, just like all the others. Now, so there's a threshold there where like the amount of damage that you can deal. So fire damage actually just got a pretty good buff. So not not that it really needs it, because any additional content that I make right now is gonna start placing more emphasis on either ice or poison damage, because I'm probably going to be veering away from this. One of the ideas that I have for um, future content is adding a new mechanic where the monster's elements can be changed on the fly. So either using actions or special abilities or whatever, you can change a monster's elemental resistance by targeting them, or by leading them towards, walking towards certain um, radius objects or something like that. Like if they walk towards this like floating orb, I'm not really sure what it'll be, but you walk it towards this sort of thing, and they automatically just become whatever the element that object is. So they can become, ice resistant, which means that your fire damage is now better. So there will end up being sort of a strategy towards like dragging monsters over to something, certain objects, these kinds of things that will provide like elemental resistances. And I'm not even really sure. Even the player may be able to gain benefits from this as well. So you'll actually see some strategy in play for dealing with that. That's one of the reasons why I also made the elemental resistance affixes more powerful. It's because now, you know, you might have like a lot of weapons that deal fire damage. Well, now you end up fighting a bunch of like fire-based creatures. You have an option now where you can drag them over to a or try to fight next to something that'll switch their resistance so that they won't be resisting all of your damage, or you can deal increased damage and stuff like that. Berserker armor affix no longer reduces max health. This is a huge buff to Berserker, by the way. Berserker is not exactly bad armor either. So it just it always the trade-off never really felt good to me. And when I look at like the benefits of having something like endless or sprinters or enduring, there's no drawbacks for those. They tend to be really good suits of armor, and they don't really do anything negative. So like why would you equip Berserker? Like why would you want marksman? It doesn't make any sense. Like Berserker should just actually increase your damage. Revulsion will now check to see if you actually have, if you have actually obtained an advancement reward after claiming it. If you do not have the reward, it will give you another chance to collect it. So I went ahead and I did that thing. It was brought up in the forum here, talking about the let's see, let's see, yeah. Collecting advancement rewards does not work. It turned out, so while the game is paused in the main menu, the advancement rewards would randomly break. They wouldn't even consistently break. See, like if something consistently breaks, I find that to be a lot easier to deal with. But if something randomly breaks, I don't want to have a part of that. That shit, I don't know what the fuck to do about something like inconsistently. So I removed the advancement thing from the escape menu tab. It just let's just forget that it was ever there, please. I don't want to have to deal with that. Like, but in the in the regular like inventory menu, everything works as it's supposed to, but there's also, it really sucks if someone lost the items that they were supposed to obtain when they when they tried to collect them. So the game actually now it checks to see if you actually obtained the item from the reward. If you didn't, if it's not sitting in your inventory, then what it'll do is it'll just reset whether or not you've collected it. It just gets rid of that progress tag in your progress tags, and you can now you can now get a second chance to collect that same blueprint. So, Mr. Unbecoming, you should be able to get your double barrel shotgun and stuff like that. You now disable side leaning and view bobbing in the options menu, and this is something that was requested as well um, for if you have like motion sickness and stuff like that. It's sitting right in the options menu. I can show it right now. So if you go into options, you go here, you go dev, or not dev. This tab doesn't even exist regularly, and you turn that on, disable movement effects. You should be able to now see how like there's no leaning, there's no view bob. Got rid of all that, so that should make it easier to play with if you have motion sickness and those kinds of things. Um, Hopefully that helps. I mean, you're still going to be moving pretty quickly through the environment if you have a lot of haste. This character has a ton of haste here, so I wouldn't. This isn't really the bar to judge the player movement, but it really feels like Doom right now without the bob. And last but not least, I finally figured out why this monsters that are tough, epic, and legendary no longer spawn at reduced health. Well, I figured out what the problem was. So now when you see one, they'll spawn at full health, which means that they're going to be a lot harder to kill if you're not careful. I'm I'm a little bit worried about this because, I watch people play, and sometimes they would struggle to kill, a legendary zombie who's basically become the bag of all healths that ever existed on Earth, and he started off with 50% of his health. At this point in time, like, yeah, so this may require further attention. Please complain about it if you have a bad experience dealing with a legendary mob that simply won't die. Because if a legendary mob won, if he spawns at a significantly higher level than the guns that you currently have, you're going to be dealing 1 damage. Because the monsters that are legendary, not only do they spawn with a larger pool of health, but they also spawn a certain number of levels higher as well. And if your gun is under leveled, so for example, if your weapon is 10 levels below the monster's level, so like you're level 15 and you have a level 9 gun, and you run into a legendary monster that's like level 20, you're not going to be able to defeat that monster. You're gonna have to figure out like how to like kite him around or something. You just have to be very careful about that. I don't know. I mean, maybe it should just not let that happen, but like then again too, like why were you carrying around a level 9 gun when you were level 15? You got to be careful about that. Like you got to try and keep everything as leveled up as possible. You don't want to be carrying around weak weapons, especially now that this is fixed, because that can really screw you over when dealing with tougher monsters. Like tough is not so bad. Epic, legendary. Oh damn! If you run into a legendary, they got like 5x their normal health pool. The good news is that Ogrim Gore and the abominations no longer can spawn with these affixes. So that's good because I'll be damned if abominations already didn't have enough health as it was, and of course, the final raid boss that you actually end up fighting later in the game should probably well, they shouldn't they shouldn't have fixes when they spawn. But okay, so with that said, I think that's pretty much everything. Expect a patch on Friday, probably later at night Eastern Standard Time. With at least these changes, if not more. I'm probably going to get more because I'll be working on Thursday night and I'll be getting more stuff done. And a lot of the simple stuff like the ammo changes and the rapid grenade launcher, um, and stuff like that. Those should be pretty straightforward. Uh, these are annoying. This might take a bit to figure out. So if it does happen, it'll probably be a Monday thing. This one's also really annoying. Like these three right here are a pain in the butt, but I'll make sure I get them fixed. And this one has a chance to be extremely easy to fix. So that might actually be in on Friday. This one's a pain in the butt as well because I'm not exactly sure what's causing it. Let me put all the pain in the butt ones together. There we go. Um, and of course, there's all these. Yeah. Okay. So with that, actually, I could probably destructible blocks should have a crack on them. I should probably put that right here as part of this. All right, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end this video now. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope you're enjoying the game. And so far everything's going pretty well with the game, sales-wise, everything like that. I really like that people are giving me feedback. I really like that people are having things to say, and I am paying attention, and I am making changes based on that feedback, and I am listening to everybody. Um, it just makes me happy to see people enjoying it and everything like that. So, yeah, don't feel guilty for complaining about stuff. If you have a complaint, if you have an issue with the game, let me know. I'll see what I can do. Um, I'm going through all this stuff. It's so far so good. So far so good. I'm not doing spectacularly, but I'm doing good enough at the moment, which makes me pretty happy. So, all right, take it easy, guys, and I'll talk to you on Friday. I'll probably have a video with the patch.